Hey everybody, hope we're all doing well. Just going to go over some confidence intervals with you guys with small samples with t-scores. So the only difference when we're talking about a t-score versus a z-score is the sample size. If the sample size is 30 or greater, then we're going to do the confidence intervals the way we learned using a z-score. But if we have a very small sample, okay, sample that is less than 30, then we use an adjustment. And this adjustment is called a t-score. And in our formula, the only change that's going to happen is we're going to be using a t-score instead of a z-score. It's an adjustment for that small sample. Okay, sample, standard deviation compared to a population standard deviation. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. Okay, table F, which has been downloaded to Google Classroom. Okay, that's the table that we're going to use to find the t-score. So for example, if I said to you my sample size was 20 and that we had a confidence interval of 95%. Well, the way that you would use this table is you would go to the very first column, which is the DF, the degree of free column, and degree of freedom is just sample size minus 1. So if my sample size is 20, 20 minus 1 is going to be 19. So I put my finger at 19 and I go across until I get to a 95% confidence interval. And when I do that, I get a t-score of 2.093. So if you think about what a z-score was, a z-score was 1.96. So a t-score is always going to be just a little bit more because of that adjustment for that small sample size. So what I'm asking you to do is we're going to do that same document, that 8.1, 8.2, okay, those problems, except the difference is for 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay, all the sample sizes were less than 30. So we really should be using a t-score for this. So if we look at number 2, okay, it says the average wind speed in Minnesota is 13.1 miles per hour. Okay, that's our sample mean. Sample of 100 days. Okay, sample size is 100. Find the 99% confidence interval. Oh, excuse me. Mr. Fader screwed up there for a second. Okay, I want to do number 3, not number 2, because number 2, the sample size is bigger than 100. It's for 3, 4, and 5 that we don't. So let's take a little rewind back there. And if we go to number 3, the sample mean is 8.6. Okay, the sample size is 20. That's why we have to use a t-score now. And we're going to do a 90% confidence interval with a standard deviation of 1.6. So again, if you pull out your t-score table, okay, degree of freedom of 20, which means we're going to use 19. And if we go across to a 90% confidence interval, that value is going to be 1.729, which is a little bit more than our 1.65 that we normally use. So again, the way I would solve this is I would take 1.6 divided by the square root of 20, which is about 0.36. Multiply that by 1.729. And when you do that, you're going to get a margin of error of about 0.6. So if I add 0.6, I'm going to get 9.2. If I subtract 0.6, I'm going to get 8. So what we're saying is 8 miles per hour to 9.2 miles per hour okay, is going to be the range for the fish there, for the tuna. Okay, so again, in these problems, the only difference is you look at the sample size. If it's less than 30, you use a t-score. 30 or greater, use a z-score. So on that paper, you're going to do 4 and 5. Okay, 4 has a sample size of 25, 5 has a sample size of 20, but that's how we use t-scores in confidence intervals. All right, until next time, have a good day.